Hello, my dear learners. How are you all doing? Welcome to the third session of our free English learning series. This is a new series that I've introduced on this channel where I upload the entire sessions. These are of longer duration, but this is the real English learning content only for serious English learners. So those of you who go through the sessions completely would be able to speak English fluently and confidently without joining any institute, any classes, without buying courses. Yes, you can work on your English on your own. So this is a session, this is a channel for all those of you who believe in self-learning. So very few of you, I have noticed, are attending the sessions thoroughly, and I've decided to give a shout out to those serious learners who are completing the previous session. In the last session also, I asked you something and I received only 3 comments from you guys, so I thought of sharing the names with you. There is Shiny, who attended the full session, and I received her comment and I got to know that she completed the task that I assigned in the end. Then we have Pramod Raj, who again attended the session thoroughly, and Muhammad Nazar, who calls me as his sister. So my dear brother, he has also completed the session. In fact, I would urge you to go and read his comments. He shares some wonderful, valuable information which will be beneficial for all the learners. So today's session is also a grammar session, and if you attended thoroughly, I'm going to give a shout out to all those learners in the next session. So this is how it is going to go by. I want more learners, more serious learners who can take the best out of these kind of videos and who can motivate me to create more such learning content. All right, so today's topic is something which you all find very confusing. I have seen many comments where you are asking me difference between 2 sentences. Now, when I say I have taught English for 12 years, or I say I have been teaching English for 12 years, now you will get confused. What is the difference between 2, and in which situation am I going to use which of these sentences, right? So today's session is going to resolve all your confusion, but only if you attend the session thoroughly. Today's topic is about the difference between present perfect tense and present perfect continuous tense. Yes, I know that you find it very confusing. It is a little twisted, but in this session, I'm going to talk about each of the tense in detail with examples which will be very helpful for you to simplify the whole learning process. And in the end, I'll give you a comparison between the 2. I'll share the sentence structures with you. I'll share all the necessary details. So make sure that you're sitting with your notebook and pen and you note down every single detail. So there is going to be a homework like always. If you attend the full session, you'll get to know the tasks that have been assigned to you during the session. So let's begin today's grammar topic on a very positive note. I hope you're all ready with your notebooks and pens, and you are going to actually resolve your confusion from now on. You'll be able to use the right tenses in the right situations after going through the full session.
Let's try to understand present perfect tense first. The present perfect tense is used to show an action that happened in the past, that is directly related to the present, such as actions that are still continuing or that indicate a change over time. Now, my dear learners, don't let the name confuse you. Even though the word present is there, but the present perfect tense deals with actions that happened or started in the past. Okay, now in the present perfect tense, the main verbs always use the auxiliary verbs or helping verbs, as you call it, has or have. Generally, we use have for all the subjects except the singular third person, which uses has instead. Now, I will try to give you some examples, then it'll be more clear to you where we are going to use has and where we are going to use have. First person, let's take examples related to our English speaking and learning only. For first person, I will construct this sentence. I have learned to speak English. For second person, we will say, you have learned to speak English. For third person plural, we will say, they have learned to speak English. But for third person singular, we will say, he, she, or it, whatever it is, has learned to speak English. Even if there is a name, suppose Ram has learned to speak English. So this is how we use has and have. Now let's move on to the construction of a present perfect tense. The basic simple affirmative sentence, how do we construct it? Now you are supposed to write down these formulas. It'll be easy for you to create sentences of your own. Okay, now this goes like this. Subject plus has or have plus third form of the verb plus object. So this is the construction. Based on it, I will construct these sentences. I have planted some plants in my garden. Okay, because I am the first person, so I have used have. Now, she has bought a new car. If I flip the situations with instead of I try to use she. She has planted some plants in her garden and I have bought a new car. So I hope it is absolutely clear to you now. Now let's have a look at the construction of a negative sentence. This will be subject plus has or have plus not plus third form of the verb plus objects. Examples would be, they have not finished the project on time. Or, she has not studied for the exam. Similarly, for an interrogative sentence, the construction would be has or have plus subject plus third form of the verb plus object followed by a question mark in the end. With all the interrogative sentences, we need to use a question mark. Now, the examples would be, have you learned a new language? Or, has he read that famous book? Or, have you eaten your breakfast yet? Yes, have you eaten your breakfast yet? You must have noticed that I have used yet in this sentence. The adverb yet is often used with a negative or a sentence with question marks. Now, it almost always comes at the end of a sentence or a clause. Yet means up until the present or a specified or implied time. By now or then, you can say. Now, let's look at some more sentences. So, after this, you would also start using yet very easily. Sadly, he hasn't paid the rent yet. Haven't you met him yet? So, these are adverbs that we used in this present perfect tense. Let me introduce you to some adverbials that are used in this present perfect tense, like yet, as yet, just now, still, already, recently, lately, frequently, so far, this morning, ever, never, once, twice, thrice, and so forth. Now, I'm going to use some of these adverbs into sentences so that you get to know how you're going to use them in present perfect tense. Have you ever seen a mermaid? Question mark. So far, I've only studied my English subject. She has never been to Australia. Be careful. I have just broken a glass. He still hasn't finished the report. We have already chosen what we would like to eat. Is it clear now how you are going to use these adverbials? Now what you are supposed to do is that you are going to try constructed some sentences of your own with past tense using the remaining adverbs. So that's one of your homeworks, okay? Now my dear learners, let's try to understand the situations. When do we use present perfect tense? There are three major situations. First is to denote an action or event that happened or started in the past and still has its impact or some connection to the subject in the present. Or we use this present perfect tense to indicate an action that happened in the past and continues to occur in the present. We also use the present perfect tense to connect the events of present to the events that happened in the past. Examples. The professor has taught here for 2 decades. Or they have played piano since the age of 3. You must have noticed that here for and since have come into action. So this is a very significant part of present perfect tense, for and since. Now, we often use for and since when we are talking about time. Now, for is for a period, which is a duration of time, like for 5 minutes, 2 weeks, 6 years. Like for means from the beginning of a period to the end of that period, right? We have lived in this house for 5 years. I have known Maya for 15 years. Okay, so this is where we use for. But since we use it for a particular point. A point which is like a precise moment in time. Like if I say 9 o'clock or 1st January or Monday or July, like this. Since means from a point in the past until now. Like I told you, I gave you examples related to for. Let's have a look at it now. We have lived in this house since 2018. Earlier I said we have lived in this house for 5 years. Now it is we have lived in this house since 2018. I have known Maya since I was 12. Earlier I said I have known Maya for 15 years. Right? So that's the basic difference between for and since. Now, this will come in play when we will be talking about present perfect continuous again. Now, we were talking about when do we use this present perfect tense. Now, an action that was completed very recently, like where we use just or now. If an action was only completed very recently, you can describe it with a present perfect tense. Even though the action happened in the past, it was so recent that it's directly connected to the present. These cases usually use adverbs like just now or now to show that action happened not so long ago. Examples: I shouldn't eat anymore because I've just brushed my teeth. Now adverbs again have come into action. We have finished practice now, so let's go home. He has just received an email. So this was all about present perfect tense. I hope there is no confusion because I've tried to be very simple with my language while explaining the tense to you. Let's move on to the second tense for the day, which is present perfect continuous tense. Now, the present perfect continuous, which is also known as present perfect progressive tense, is a verb tense, and it is used to talk about something that started in the past and is still continuing at the present time. The action is still going on. Let's look at the construction. Just the way we constructed the present perfect tense, it is going to be more or less the same with a bit of addition. The formula noted down is subject plus has or have plus been plus first form of the verb plus ing plus for or since. Now, for and since and has or have, I've already explained it to you in detail. Have a look at some examples and then it'll be absolutely clear to you. Manu has been bringing some food for us since yesterday. Jatin has been committing to get married since August. We have been listening to music for a long time. The baby has been crying for 3 hours. Now, you have to try to make negative and interrogative sentences by following the same rules that I shared previously. So the same rules will be applicable. You have to make the additions of been and ing on your own. Rest, everything remains the same. That has been or have been will come forward and subject will come afterwards, like that. So use some of your wisdom, okay? You're all adults now. So when do we use this continuous tense, present perfect continuous? It indicates an action that began in the past and continues to the present. So something which is still happening in the present, like he has been sleeping since 8 last night. He's still sleeping. She has been working as a freelance writer for 3 years. What have the students been doing since the teacher left the room? Now this one is an interrogative sentence. We also use present perfect continuous tense to emphasize the duration of any event. Now, when a person has been doing something for some time, we use since or for, depending, to show the duration. Like, he has been hiding out in his room for the last 3 hours. Or, she has been waiting for him for 2 hours. Namita has been teaching English since 2009. Right? So this is how we construct these sentences. We also use this present perfect progressive tense to show an action that happened recently or lately. Now, you can use it to show any event or action that happened very recently and usually just before you made the statement. In this case, you may choose to add the adverb recently or lately. Even if you don't add the adverb, the tense inherently has that meaning. Again, we will look at some examples. I have been feeling really groggy lately. Or, the kids have been having too much gadget time. I think it's time to put a stop to it. Or, another example is, she has been eating a lot of sweets recently. So these were a few examples of present perfect continuous tense. Now, since we have studied both these tenses in detail, let's have a look at the comparison between the two. What is the major difference? Now, although both tenses relate to the fact that something is being referred to in the past, the present perfect refers to something that has finished. But the present perfect continuous refers to something that is continuing in the present. That's the major difference. And otherwise, in the construction, you already know both these tenses, we use has or have based on the subject But in present perfect continuous, we use been also and ing because it's continuing. Like if I have to give you an example of present perfect, I would say he has passed his driving test. And for present perfect continuous, she has been reading a book. So it is very simple. Let's have a look at some of the present perfect continuous examples. In the end, to make the comparison more clear to you, I'll give you sentences, similar sentences for both present perfect and present perfect continuous. For present perfect, he has eaten green vegetables his whole life. But if I have to convert it into present perfect continuous, I would say he has been eating green vegetables his whole life. Another example would be, for present perfect, I would say he has worked for the company since he was a teenager. And for continuous, it would be, he has been working for the company since he was a teenager. For present perfect, I have lived here for 3 years. But for continuous, it will be, I have been living here for 3 years. For perfect, present perfect, they have studied English since high school. And for present perfect continuous, it would be, they have been studying English since high school. I believe that by now the whole concept of present perfect and present perfect continuous is absolutely clear to you. Now, what are you supposed to do? You are going to create 5 sentences with present perfect and 5 sentences with present perfect continuous on your own.
So, my dear learners, how was this grammar lesson? Has the confusion been resolved? I hope that by now you're very clear with both the tenses and you have your homework in your hand. You know what you're supposed to do. But those of you who have come till here, who have been through the entire session, you should get some benefit. So what you are going to do is you're going to send me an email here on the email ID which is mentioned here, and you're going to type all the tenses, all the sentences that you have created with both the tenses. You know the homework already. Send the homework to me on my email ID, and I'm going to send you one worksheet based on these tenses. So it will enhance your experience of learning English and it will help you self-evaluate your learning. So I keep telling you that only those of you who are attending full sessions will get extra benefits. So I'll wait for your emails and I hope that this was a great learning session for you. Please, more of you, if you join these kind of sessions, motivate me to create more such learning content for you. All right. So on this positive note, I'm going to end this video and I'll see you in my next video. My best wishes are always with you. Keep working on your English. Keep believing in self-learning. Bye-bye for now.